He took out a second mortgage behind my back. The envelope was stuffed behind his old military medals, sealed in a manila folder that smelled of dust and betrayal. On the laptop screen, the Telegram group he called safe was nothing but a gray square with one word deleted. My hands went cold before my mind could catch up, like my body understood the ruin before I did. It felt like the floor beneath me had been erased. If your home is paid off, do you know who holds the title now? Margaret lived in a 2-bedroom cedar house at the edge of Northfield, Vermont, the kind of place where winters are long, neighbors are few, and everyone waves whether they know your name or not. She was 69 years old, retired from the school cafeteria where she spent 28 years serving meals and remembering every child's allergy by heart. Her husband, Gerald, was 71. He had retired 5 years earlier after 3 decades with the Postal Service. A quiet man, square shoulders even in old age, proud of his military past. Their house had been paid off for almost 10 years. Margaret liked to say they had built their peace board by board, budget by budget, storm by storm. But peace has its own way of going quiet before it breaks. Gerald had started spending more time in the den, not reading, not watching television, just sitting in front of the laptop, headphones on, eyes fixed. At first, Margaret thought it was boredom. He'd never been good at retirement. Then she noticed he kept the door locked during the day. She caught glimpses of dark screens filled with columns and charts. "What's that?" she had asked once. "Walking past with laundry. Just something I'm learning about. It's harmless," he had replied. Without looking up, she didn't press. Margaret had never liked asking twice. He'd begun waking in the middle of the night. Sometimes, she'd hear the kettle hiss before dawn. He'd be whispering on the phone, pacing between rooms with the urgency of someone chasing something unseen. When she asked, he said it was an old army buddy. She remembered nodding, not because she believed it, but because silence had become easier than suspicion. Then came the card. Margaret had been at the grocery store, trying to pay for a few basics: bread, peanut butter, bananas. Her card was declined. Twice. "There's a note here to contact your bank," the young cashier said gently. She called Gerald from the car. He said it was probably a system error and promised to look into it. That night, he came to bed later than usual. His side of the mattress stayed cold till morning. 1 week later, she saw a thick white envelope on the kitchen counter. It had the bank's logo printed across the corner, her name and Gerald's. She picked it up. The paper inside felt heavier than it should have. He had gone out to get mulch for the front garden. That gave her 15 minutes. She opened it. Her eyes scanned phrases she couldn't make sense of at first-second mortgage agreement. Secured by primary residence. Loan amount $120,000. She didn't understand. The house was paid off. Margaret walked slowly to the den. She had never entered it without knocking. Today, she did. The room was dim. A single sliver of sun cut across the desk. Dust floated in the beam like suspended ash. On the wall hung a photo of their wedding. Beside a framed American flag from Gerald's service, she opened the bottom drawer. Inside, a manila folder, sealed with a rusted paperclip, printouts of digital wire transfers, a chart labeled 10x Growth Plan, a screenshot from a Telegram group titled Crypto Gold Vault, and in the center, a list of usernames, strange names, foreign. Next to Gerald's was a small check mark and the word investor. I didn't understand everything, but I understood enough. He had mortgaged our house, joined an online group of strangers, sent away our safety-chasing numbers he didn't understand, and it was all gone. A coldness spread down the back of my neck. I reached for the corner of the desk to steady myself. The house felt silent in a new way, not quiet but emptied out, like someone had taken the roof off and let the sky fall in. My ears began to hum, like I had gone underwater. I could see the photo on the wall, but couldn't hear the world around it. My fingers stiffened. I realized I had pressed one against the wedding photo frame, not to hold it, but to keep myself from falling. I looked down. The telegram printout sat beneath my hand. I poured the glass of water beside me. Without noticing, I had picked it up. The liquid spilled over the paper. blurring the usernames into each other. Still, I didn't move. My eyes watched as the ink turned grey, then bled into the wood grain. That night, I sat in the kitchen. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't cook. The kettle clicked off after boiling, and I let it cool without pouring. Gerald came home. He asked if I wanted tea. I didn't answer. Later, when he went to bed, I stayed seated staring at the same patch of tile. I whispered. Maybe only to the silence itself. I was just the wife who cooked and trusted. Maybe that was my real mistake. For years, Margaret believed that staying out to finances was a form of love. She had always handled the house, the meals, the routines, but the money. That was Gerald's realm. He had the folder with the bank documents. He answered the calls from the credit union. He said things like, "Don't worry, it's under control." And she believed him. That was how their marriage worked, quiet trust. Not many questions, but that kind of silence can be dangerous. In truth, Margaret had slowly stepped away from the table where the decisions were made, not by force, not even by neglect, but by a pattern learned from mothers who never touched the checkbook and from churches that told wives to support, not interfere. And one day, she woke up and realized she hadn't seen a mortgage document in over 10 years. She didn't even know how many accounts they had. Gerald had used that silence like a shield. He took out a second mortgage behind her back. He withdrew money from their joint retirement fund and moved it into a cryptocurrency scheme he barely understood. He followed strangers in a Telegram group named Crypto Gold Vault, believing promises of tenfold returns. No licenses, no legal backing, just screenshots and blind hope. When it collapsed, and it did, he said nothing. Margaret only found out because the bank sent a notice addressed to them both. When she opened the drawer in his office, the truth came out in layers: wire transfers, loan agreements, charts of guaranteed gains, and one printout that simply said, "Deleted." She could have stayed frozen in that moment, but she didn't. The next morning, she called her daughter, and that same week, they sat in a quiet office across from a family law attorney who listened more than he spoke. Margaret handed over every piece of paper she had. The lawyer began building a case not just for divorce, but for financial fraud within marriage, citing hidden debt in retirement and willful misuse of marital property. Because Gerald had acted alone, without her documented consent, the court saw his behavior as a breach of fiduciary duty, a legal term meaning he had violated the basic trust required in managing shared assets. Margaret's lawyer argued that she should not be held responsible for the full fallout, and the court agreed. She retained sole control over her pension, her social security benefits, and any remaining savings and accounts she had opened in her own name. But that was only the first step. She filed a separate request with the mortgage lender for full disclosure. The bank, under pressure, revealed that spousal notification was technically required under state law for loans above a certain threshold. They had skipped that step, relying only on Gerald's signature. That small oversight became a wedge. With legal backing, Margaret halted the foreclosure. Her lawyer negotiated a short sale, allowing her to sell the house and use the proceeds to pay off what remained of the loan. The bank forgave the balance under a hardship exemption. It was not a win, but it was not a loss either. Later, with her daughter by her side, Margaret rewrote her will. She removed Gerald from all beneficiary lines, revoked his medical and financial powers, and listed her daughter as her primary contact. She also attended a financial literacy workshop for women over 65 at the local library. It was the first time she'd ever opened an investment statement on her own. Gerald didn't fight the divorce. His credit was damaged, his access to loans restricted. The consequences caught up with him, not with noise, but with silence. That's what hidden debt in retirement does. It doesn't shout, it waits, buried behind paperwork and passwords, until the weight of it falls on someone who never even held the key. Margaret now knew what financial betrayal in long-term marriage looked like, and she had learned, painfully, that no matter how late it comes, drawing a line can still change the ending. And, after the short sale was finalized, Margaret packed her things in 3 plastic tubs. Not everything, just what she could carry without help. Her daughter found her a 1-bedroom apartment in Betrayal, about 20 miles south of Northfield. It was smaller, older, and came with a leaky faucet. But it was hers. Her name alone was on the lease. For the first time in decades, she signed the papers without asking anyone for permission. She filled the kitchen drawers with the same utensils she had once used to cook for 2. Now they clinked differently, not in mourning, but in new rhythm. Some days she cooked. Some days she sat by the window and ate toast while watching neighbors walk their dogs. She found a free computer class at the library and began showing up twice a week. At first, she didn't speak much. Then she began helping other women print things. One day she brought in her own bank statement and asked a librarian to help her understand the terms. There was no shame in her voice, only curiosity. She didn't try to recover everything. Some losses stay lost. Gerald didn't call after the divorce. His name arrived only once on a letter from the county tax office. Redirecting future inquiries to her new address, she placed it in a box marked past and never opened it again. She didn't hate him, but she never forgave the way he used her silence as a weapon. And still, she moved forward. Her recovery didn't come all at once. It arrived like light through an old curtain, soft, slow, a little at a time, but it came. One evening, as she stood in her small kitchen, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, she whispered, "I may have lost the house, but I kept the part of myself he couldn't mortgage." She didn't say it for anyone else, only to the steam, only to the stillness. But it was real, and it stayed. So now I ask you not out of fear, but out of love. Go find your house deed. Look at the name on the loan. Ask the questions you've been too polite to ask. Open the drawer you have never opened. And if you see something that doesn't look right, tell someone. Tell your daughter. Tell your friend. Tell your bank. Even tell this comment section. Because someone here might have gone through the same thing. You are not alone. You are not too old. And it is not too late.